All right, so we've done the preparation. We've learned the preparation. We've learned the walking. Now we're going to learn the basic stance. And the basic stance is called the bow stance. All right, because it resembles a bow that you shoot, not a bow that you tie. All right, and a bow is springing, and so should our bow stance be. And this basic stance we are going to use to strengthen the body, strengthen the legs in a tai-chi way. And then later when we go to do grasp the sparrow tail, the form, we'll be using this bow stance, this basic stance to move from. We'll be turning the waist and shifting the weight. But here we're just going to get into the bow stance, and we're going to make sure the bow stance is proper. Now, tai-chi, you have to be accurate. We have a saying, off by a millimeter, off by a mile. So everything has to be accurate. Tai-chi is very simple, but you have to be accurate. You have to be very accurate. You can't be off. Okay, just remember that while I'm going over all these points. They have to be dead on. Right? In the beginning it's frustrating, but later the body gets used to it, and then you forget about that. You're actually having to concentrate on it, and you can focus more on relaxing, breathing, and moving. But with that said, let's get started. All right, and once again, we have these lines, and hopefully you have these lines on your floor. If you don't, I strongly suggest you put down tape, 2 pieces of tape, parallel, your shoulder width apart. So find out how wide your stance is when you stand shoulder width. Make 2 parallel lines at the width of your shoulders, and then you can use that to practice. Okay, and you can use it. You're going to use it for the walking exercise too. All right. So let's just start with our feet parallel, which I explained before. You want to look at the center toe, the center of the foot. Make sure the feet are parallel. All right, make sure your shoulder width apart. All right. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a step back, but don't take a step back yet. Okay, and here's where these lines come into play. When I take a step back, and I'm going to take a comfortable step back, comfortable, not big. When I take a step back, I'm going to pay attention to keeping my heel on one of these straight lines. Not my toe, my heel. Okay, why do we do this? Because we don't want to lose this shoulder width of space we have in between the legs. Now, if I tell people to take a step back straight, they don't take a step back straight, they step in. This is a very common mistake. And remember, I've been teaching Tai-Chi for a long time, so I know the mistakes before they happen. If you get in the habit of doing this, which I have to correct all the time, and remember, this is a video, I'm not there with you. This is something I have to correct all the time with my students because they just skip it. You cannot skip it. If you do this and you go into your bow stance, you can't turn your waist, you can't get at your hips, everything will be off. Remember, Tai-Chi is about the lower body. If the lower body is off, doesn't matter what you do with the hands, it's going to be wrong. It has to start from the foundation in our feet. So when you take a step back, start with parallel feet. Make sure you keep the heel on that line. That's going to keep that space, and you're taking a comfortable step back, a comfortable step back. Now, next thing we're going to do, the back leg. We're going to turn the foot out to a 45-degree angle, and we're going to turn on the heel. Do not turn on the ball of the foot. Turn on the heel. Lift the toes up, turn on the heel, and the middle toe of the foot is going to point to a 45-degree angle. Now, I'm not great with math or angles, so some of you also might not be, so let me just go over what I'm talking about. We have this one line here. I'm going to call this 12 o'clock, the camera I'm staring at. And then you have this one line here, which goes out here. All right, this is a 90-degree angle. You want the foot, the middle toe, pointing right down the middle. That's 45. And it's very important to remember this because we use this angle a lot in our form, a lot. So get used to putting the foot, turning on the heel, and putting the foot, the center toe, at a 45-degree angle. And we're going to be doing this on both sides of the body, so get used to it on both sides. We're going to do everything on both sides in the practice. All right, so now I've got this foot to deal with. It should already be perfect. We want this middle toe pointing at 12 o'clock. Right down this line. And this is why we need lines on the floor, or we should have lines on the floor. Or I suggest you have lines on the floor. And there we go. Our feet are in this position. Now, while we do this, you cannot move your feet. And I have to correct this all the time, because as soon as we start going, bending the knees, which we're going to do in a second, and adjusting a lot of stuff, people, their bodies just automatically say, oh, this isn't comfortable. I'll move the foot out here. You can't do that. You can't move it. Remember, we're putting the feet in a specific position to get at the hips and the rest of the body. Remember, off by a millimeter, off by a mile. So make sure you do not move your feet. And this includes when we start moving. All right? So we've got the foot, the back foot at a 45, front foot pointing straight at 12 o'clock. Next thing we want to do, relax and release. Boom. The legs and the whole body. Now, these legs we do not stand on. We sit into them. We do not stand on the legs. Standing on the legs means pushing the ground away from the upper body so you hold yourself up. We don't do that. We relax the legs, boom, and they become a seat, and they become like springs. They become like a bow, which is a spring. Bow stance. All right? Keep the legs relaxed. Pay extra attention to this back leg. Almost everybody has a tendency to want to brace themselves. So what they do is they push off the ground. They straighten the leg and push off the ground. All right? You see from here, now I'm leaning. It doesn't matter if there's a little tension in there, you're going to have the upper body leaning. So this back leg, and I correct this all the time. I'm telling you all the things I always correct, the major mistakes for you to avoid. Keep that leg bent. Spring, spring. Spring's bent. All right? Now, bend the legs, feet in the proper position. Now we need to adjust the weight, or excuse me, we need to adjust the waist. So this stick, my rod of correction, is going to indicate where my waist is pointing, because it's right in my belly button, straight line. This is going to indicate which direction my belly button, my waist is pointing. Now right now it's kind of pointing towards the 45, and this is pretty comfortable. Got 50% in one leg, 50% in the other leg, and my waist is pointing almost to the 45. This is pretty comfortable. We can hang out here for a long time, but we're not going to do that. We're going to turn the waist so that our waist is pointing straight at 12 o'clock. Don't move the feet. Don't straighten the back leg. You got to keep all this stuff intact while we're doing these corrections. All right? Now, another way to look at this, if you look at this angle, is this hip is not in front of this hip is not behind this hip. They're leveled off. All right? Once you have your waist pointing at 12 o'clock. Very important. All right? And now we're going to do one last thing. Remember, separate weight, S. We have to separate 80% of our weight into our front leg. All right? When we do that, you're not doing that by pushing off the ground. Check that. You have to do that by bringing the hips forward. Bring the hips forward. All right? Don't listen to the leg. Listen to the bottom of the feet. Listen to the pressure in the bottom of the feet. 20% here, 80% here. And using the rod of correction, you need to make sure your knee comes right up to your toe, not past. If your knee is slightly behind the toe, and you might be able to pick that up, this is incorrect. This is not completely separated. Boom, all the way up there. Now, we need to have our feet in the correct position. Knees bent, especially the back one. Don't stiffen it up. You need your back upright. All right? We need the energy in the body to travel straight up and down. That's why we don't lean. All right? Now, put your structure in there. Extend the head up. Take the chest down. Relax the shoulders and the elbows down. Release and relax. Use mind, not force, not strength. All right? If you're correctly in this position right now, your front leg is probably screaming at you saying, stand up. That means you're doing it more correct than less correct. All right? And this is why this position strengthens the body. Now, why is this front leg screaming? If you look from the side, it doesn't look like an aggressive position. I'm not real low. It's because now I've put your body in the position with structure in place so that the energy in the body is going up, straight up, and straight down. And this is going through your leg right now. And it's pushing through your leg. And this is why your leg is screaming. All right? So, how do we relieve this? Let's stand up, and we'll do this a lot. This next thing I'm going to talk about. We're going to do a thing called tai-chi. And whenever we do something and our legs get all tired and they're screaming at us, we're going to do this thing called tai-chi. And it's just we're going to spring the legs up and down along with the arms. So when I say tai-chi, this is what we're going to do. All right. And that is the basic stance. Now, when I say that is the basic stance, that doesn't mean we don't have other configurations when we do the form. We won't have another configuration in this part of in this lesson 1, in this workshop. But later, when we start learning more of the form, there'll be different configurations in the legs. But for now, all you have to worry about is this bow stance. Okay? Now, just to go over important points. Correct feet, correct position in the feet. Relax the knees, relax the legs, especially the back leg. Don't straighten it up. You're going to have a tendency to want to do that. Make sure structure is in place, all your principles. Extend from above, extend the upper neck up, extend the back up. Relax, release, use mind, take the chest down. Relax the shoulders and the elbows down, the shoulders and the elbows down. All right, all these things need to be in place. So I suggest before you practice, always just go over the 9 talking points, the 9 principles before you do the exercise, just so you can refresh yourself and start to slowly absorb these things. All right, so that's the basic stance. Once you've got this somewhat down, move on to the next video, which is the form. We'll be starting the form. We'll start moving. All right? Practice, and I'll see you in the next video.